The Lachmann method, established in the 19th century, is named after the German scholar Karl Lachmann. Although Lachmann never wrote a systematic theoretical treatise, his editorial work, particularly on Latin authors such as Boethius and even the New Testament, paved the way for a new scientific approach to textual reconstruction. Lachmann saw philological editing not as mere copying, but as an activity requiring both critical judgment, critique, and artistic discipline, Kunstübung, governed by rules rather than by editor's intuition. His aim was to replace the subjective authority of the editor-interpreter with a method grounded in provable evidence. This principle is captured by his motto, recensere sine interpretazione et possumus et debemus, which means we can and must review without interpreting. The Lachmann method is particularly effective and therefore widely used when no original version of the text survives, and when multiple independent manuscript copies exist. In such cases, philologists must rely on the available material evidence to reconstruct the original form of the text. They compare the manuscripts, the witnesses, and analyze their relationships. In this module, we will focus on the first two phases of the method, Recensio and Collatio. The Latin word recensio means survey or review, and that is precisely what this phase involves in philology, a complete and analytical examination of the textual tradition. On the other hand, collatio comes from the Latin verb colligere, meaning to gather together, and generally refers to comparison or bringing things into relation. In the Lachmann method, the phase of recensio begins with a census of all the witnesses belonging to the tradition. Each witness is analyzed individually and in detail by the philologist. Once this survey is complete, the next step is the collatio. During this stage, the philologist compares the text of each manuscript, aligning paragraphs in prose and lines in poetry to observe agreement and differences. Typically, manuscripts share large portions of text, but they also contain many differences, ranging from minor stylistic variations to significant discrepancies. These differences include variants, readings that diverge but may still legitimate, and errors, which are readings that clearly deviate from the intended form of the text. As we discussed in the previous week of this MOOC, not all errors are helpful in genealogical analysis. Only monogenetic errors, those introduced at one and passed down through copying, allow us to trace relationships between manuscripts. These leading errors form the basis of the next stage of the method, the classificatio. We will explore it later in this week module. The logic is straightforward. When two or more manuscripts contain the same distinctive error, it is highly likely that they descend from a common ancestor in which the error first appeared. In this respect, errors are often more revealing than correctness. Two manuscripts that agree completely might offer no clue about their origins, but a shared error strongly suggests kinship. The classificatio process relies on the distinction between conjunctive and separative errors, which we discussed last week. Conjunctive errors, found in multiple manuscripts, point to common descent. Separative errors, on the other hand, help distinguishing different branches of the tradition, showing which manuscripts are not directly related. An intentionally absurd example can help illustrate this idea. Suppose most manuscripts of Dante Commedia begins with the line nel mezzo del cammin di nostra vita. Now, imagine a small group of manuscripts instead opening with nel mezzo del festin di nonna Rita, which sounds very similar in Italian and preserves the poem's meter, but means something completely different. Instead of in the middle of the journey of our life, it means in the middle of Grandma Rita's banquet. The mistaken reading about Grandma Rita's banquet acts as a conjunctive error for all the manuscripts that contain it. It shows that these manuscripts share a common origin, since it's highly unlikely that such a peculiar corruption would have arisen independently in multiple copies. At the same time, this same error has a separative value when we compare one of these manuscripts with another that instead reads the correct nel mezzo del cammin di nostra vita. In that case, the difference suggests that the two manuscripts do not descend from the same immediate source, or at least not beyond the point where the error first appeared. Once these conjunctive and separative errors have been identified and analyzed, the philologist can proceed to the next step in the method, constructing the stemma codicum. This is a graphical representation of the genealogical relationships among the manuscripts.